go. That's where to go. Okay, here we go. We are on chapter 1 of the Jewish Guide to Manifesting, or as my other alias name is called, Creating Angels. Okay, let's start the recording now. All right, welcome everybody. We are still in chapter 1, and we're venturing at just to recap a little bit on some of the stuff that we did cover. In terms of, let's say, every thought, there is an angel that is created. And of course, we discussed last time about the nature of what those thoughts creating more powerful angels versus weaker angels. And the idea is really not so much as that's okay, a person can have something in their minds. Great, a thought passes in their mind. But does it really get into the kishkas? And this is one of the things that I would venture to say, that when we talk about the term in Hebrew called dot, which literally would mean knowledge. So we could say, you know, there's a lot of things in terms of what that knowing is. But we talked about a little bit last time that you could teach a person the thought, the idea, the concept of math. Okay, 5 plus 8 is 13, right? So you could teach him that, and how do you know? Well, he can demonstrate. And if you tell a person you have a hand and an arm, well, how do you know you have a hand or a foot? So of course they're going to say what's right here. It's not something you need to talk about, discuss, or prove to someone. I know I have a hand. I know I have a foot. So it's not something which could be complicated in that way, because you know it. Okay. And that's where we all want to go. This is where you want to go, where a belief, an idea, a concept, to turn it into something that you know. And then when you know, and the whole idea is the resonance, is the feeling tone of the idea that you are developing, that you are planting, nursing, baking in the oven, okay, of our minds. That's always baking all the time. So to put that in, okay, one second. I'm going to put you guys on hold. Just 1 second. Maybe you'll be there. Hello. Hi, very good.
Yes. So they said that they can't provide me a list of the ingredients because the worker who has shown me around isn't privy to that information. But they already went over the list of ingredients with you.
Yes, but I sent you a Schedule A.
Yes. But part of it was that I have to match those ingredients to what's listed here, correct?
Correct. If you can look at them and ask where this is, ask where this is, ask to see this, ask to see that.
Oh, ask where the actual ingredients are.
Exactly.
Oh, okay, I got you. And then just look at them and see if they have the scuff of the label on the packages of those ingredients.
Yes, and if not, and they don't let you take a picture, write it down and then send it to me.
Okay, awesome.
Okay?
All right,
thanks. Are we back? Hello? Is everybody there? Hello? Can you hear me? Sorry, it's just like I've got a double booking. There's a person doing in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who's doing some work for me, and I have to be available when he calls me, because it's like the first time he's going there and he doesn't know what's going on. All right, we're back. Okay, sorry about that. All right, here we go. Okay, so we talked about the idea of the vibe, the energy, the resonance, the feeling tone that we can create when we want to develop and integrate an idea into our lives, first it starts with our consciousness, but then to the degree that we would resonate from it. He's calling me again. Okay, I have to answer it. I'm so sorry. Okay. Hello. Find out where that facility is. Okay, that's not cool. It's not cool. Okay, we're gonna let it go this time. Can they show you the premix? Okay, make sure you like get the data that's on the bag of that premix. Okay, just like if it's a lot number or serial number or whatever data is on that premix. Okay. All right. And yeah, the location of the other facility, or I'll find out that. I'll deal with that. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks. Okay, we're back again. Sorry about that. Always going to have issues. Always got issues. Okay, let's go. We're still rolling. Yeah. All right, good. All right. So here we go. So after we explain that and the idea of the degree of the resonance and the degree that we have a conviction of a certain feeling or a certain idea, so then, of course, that is going to resonate and that is going to go ahead and create the reality of that energy that we're creating. Okay. So let's go into a little bit of a deeper explanation because where do thoughts come from when you want to think about it, right? It's a very deep idea. And it goes so deep, we can't even know where the thoughts come from. But at least we're going to be exposed to the text or the words where it's going to tell us where these thoughts come from. Okay. And it's a good thing. Okay. So here we go. Here I'm on page 17. Where do thoughts come from? So here's a great line from Rabbi Cohen. And to put it together, it's just a meditation on all its own. Thought is the essence of man. And then wisdom is the essence of thought. Again, it's like you got to like kind of take a step back and like, thought is the essence of man. What? I wasn't thinking that, right? And wisdom is the essence of thought. Wisdom is the highest of the highs. I was learning today when with the Chabura, with the group that I study with. We study the Eitz Chaim. We're studying Eitz Chaim and some other texts. And it went to these ideas of what we call in Hebrew, it's called novlot. Novlot is like an offshoot, a fallen off, it's like if dates on a palm tree, they fall off, right? It's an offshoot, detached, but a detached kind of removal aspect. So it went into, there's 4 different types of these things. And here's just the concept. The novlot of wisdom, chachma, real wisdom, is Torah. Torah is just like a fallen offshoot of what the real unbelievable expanse of infinite wisdom is that we cannot even touch. That's just, all the Torah that we have is like unbelievable wisdom, is just like a little offshoot, an off branch, a fallen off piece, a disc, of something way much bigger, right? And we thought, okay. So thought is the essence of man, and wisdom is the essence of thought. So the creation in terms of the Or Ein Sof, the light of the infinite, which is pure wisdom, really, that's the essence of thought. And then if you want to like reverse the statement, okay, wisdom is the essence of thought and thought is the essence of man. So therefore you can make the connection. Man is made with such incredible wisdom, at least potential wise. So here we go. Page 17. Have you ever wondered where thoughts come from? The mind is constantly thinking, as we all know. Yet we can grab the reins and refocus our thoughts whenever we choose to. But yet, of course, if you're not choosing to think at certain thoughts, and your mind is just going to go about things. You're driving to and from work or to the store or here, there, whatever. It'll automatically wander. The mind can wander unwittingly into the realms of fantasy and then in a split second shift to an important task. Let's say you're waiting in line at the bank, right? Next. And you're like thinking of like, gee, I like popcorn land. Okay. So then you got to focus real fast. The mystics explain that there's a place, quote unquote, known as the mocha stima, the ultimate hidden reservoir of thoughts. That there's places higher than the mocha stima. The mocha stima in terms of, let's say, the cosmic realm and the cosmic map of the Ari, right? There's like, in terms of like the head, the top, the highest of the highs. You have, you'll have a tik arich, and with an arich, you'll have the mochastima. You'll have the hidden, what's it called? Mochastima, the hidden thought reservoir. That's what I would call it. Stima means like sotem, which means like kind of like it's closed. It's like the closed thought. But of course, what it means really is that it's like impossible to touch this. I made an interesting note here that I was wondering, I don't even know if that's the place of the note, but it's still cool. Okay. Is that he explained that, as we know, we have different levels of our souls, right? We have our nefesh, which is really more anchored through the liver and the blood. You have the ruach, this wind, the spirit, which is anchored through the heart and the emotions. And then you'll have the neshama, which is more anchored through, this is really just simplistic, through the mind and the thoughts. And then you'll have two other levels of our soul. You have nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and then you'll have what's called chaya, life force, and then you'll have yechida, which is like individualized expression. So these are like the different realms of our souls. And so it explains that, Adam Arishon, his soul was like strong all the way from the highest realms, very much like ours, all the way down to the nefesh. And it's all happens all the time with every person. God forbid, we all make mistakes, but let's say a person is going to do a sin. So when Adam did the sin, when Adam was going to do and reach for the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden, so his higher levels of soul said, oh man, he's going to go ahead and drive off a cliff. I'm out of here, right? So the higher levels of soul saw that he was going to do this sin, and they go, I ain't going to be involved. I'm out of here. So all of those higher levels of soul just split. They will leave that. And that's really what the explanation of the phrase that we have handed down by our sages, that a person doesn't sin unless a ruach shtus, a spirit of folly, enters into him. It doesn't mean literally a spirit of folly enters into him. Okay, a spirit of stupidity, like he's possessed, but it's like that, but in the sense of parts of his soul leave him before a person does, God forbid, a sin. So Adam Arishon, before he sinned in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, these parts, these really higher levels of soul left him. And that's really what the moach stima, this hidden consciousness level, this so sublime and so high, is the elements of our soul are there, coming from the highest place, but you can't touch it. It's closed. But things come out of there. The thoughts come out of there, right? It is a dimension beyond which the hidden thought clothes itself in layers upon layers until it reaches the conscious mind. Our thoughts therefore emanate from a sublime hidden dimension which compose of the higher elements of our soul. I was thinking, let me think here for a second. In terms of our thoughts, well, let's go on. The Baal Shem Tov teaches that the soul dresses in the quote unquote will. It dresses in the will, and the will dresses in the thoughts. Just to get that idea of dressing, it's a very deep concept that we have in Kabbalah by always addressing, a covering, a layering. Very much like we put on clothes, God, in terms of his guiding forces, puts on garments, which is really his guiding forces or energy, how he deals or how he relates to creation. But here, in terms of, let's say, our own soul, our individual connection, you have what's called the soul, a neshama. Oh, what we can grasp from the highest places of our neshama. It's there. That's one of the amazing things, is the highest thoughts are already there. But let's say that soul will dress in a will, and then that will dress in a thought. So the thought is what we grasp. So our beliefs, will, and thoughts are therefore garments of the soul. Interesting. And we'll get to more of that later. So we're referring so the thoughts that act as vessels or garments for our souls to help attain their ultimate, the soul's ultimate self-expression. Then there are the thoughts that emanate from the body, which are generally called the place of the lower soul, our nephesh. The lower soul is the basic life force rooted in the body. It is very attached to the materialistic forces and has its own agenda. The body more like has its own agenda. This kind of gets a little bit complicated here. We'll work through it here. The nephesh is holy. It's holy, but it's anchored in some place very so deep rooted. And that's where it gets kind of influenced and not necessarily can think straight. So the lower soul is the basic life force rooted in the body. It is very attached to the materialistic forces and has its own agenda. Not that the soul has its own agenda, but just it's been, I hate to use the word hijacked, which hardly ever coincides with the agenda of the higher soul. So here we are introduced to two characters. There's your lower soul. This is very important for later chapters. And your higher soul. And you could talk to them anytime you want. You can, and usually the higher soul is a very, very faint voice. I don't think that you should eat that, Yaakov. Right? And the lower soul is going, no. Okay? It's more louder, but sometimes more pronounced. It's more there. We'll talk about how this nephesh is so enmeshed in the body. But it's really a great thing I remember. Okay, let me just finish this paragraph. Right? The reason for its different agenda is that it is under strong influence of the evil inclination and angelic force that is given to us from birth. Okay, so you have the higher soul and the lower soul. And here's where you have the enmeshment of the lower soul. Because there's a force that comes to a person when they're first born. Welcome. Welcome. And here is your evil inclination. It comes at the birth of a person because it says in the verse, the petach chatas, it is crouching at the opening of the door. And the door there literally means the womb that we have in our tradition. The Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, comes into a person at birth, not before. The interesting thing is I have to give a better definition of the word inclination. It's not a really good one, but it's what classically people are familiar with when they discuss these things. But it's really not it. Because really the Hebrew word is Yetzer Hara. Hara means the evil, but Yetzer is a strange word. Yetzer means formation. It's formation, which means what? That the Yetzer Hara, this evil formation, it uses your imagination and words and ideas and mostly just the here and now to go ahead and form in your mind things that maybe seem like they're good, but really they're not. Or it forms things that maybe that they're really bad, and it forms forms in your mind, in your psyche, in your body, in your nervous system, that it's really good. So it's a formation. It's all in the mind. It is, because it's forming in your mind. But of course, as we're going to see right now, it's a little bit different. Okay. So we have the higher soul and the lower soul. This is what I wanted to say. Something very interesting I heard from Rabbi Shimon Green many, many, many years ago back in Diaspora Yeshiva. That he says, we have voices that come up inside of us if we pay attention. Last week we were taught just pay attention to the thoughts in your mind. Yes, pay attention. But then the level 2 would be ask who's saying it. In other words, who's talking? Who be talking there? Who be saying that? Right? Get the ice cream. right? Mugu pie from the fridge. Finish it now, right? Oh, you might as well just another sliver. Got to even off the cake. Okay. Sorry to embellish in that, but the idea here is to ask who's talking, who's saying it, when you can identify who's saying it. So then it gives you an edge in terms of trying to get the higher soul and the lower soul more together. Okay. At least it starts the dialogue. So now, our main challenge in life is to align these two agendas. This is the battle between the good inclination and the good inclination and the evil or bad inclination. Since thoughts are garments of the soul, changing our thoughts, if you can grab it, grasp it, be aware of it, and that's what this whole book is about, will affect our will. And in turn, our soul. Really, our soul has a natural inclination, desire to express itself freely. It's impeded from many factors that impede the soul from actually expressing its full potential. But here's a way where we open up the point of a needle to make at least the effect, at least the effort, and then God will open up for us a huge hall. So the idea here is the thought affects the will, which affects the soul. Now, I thought about this. It's a pretty amazing thing where you actually learn this from. And it's actually learned from the high priest. The garments of the high priest are just garments. But if you know that these 8 garments, each one of the garments will atone for a different sin. Like the tzitz, this little golden plate that he says, Kadosh LaHashem, that atones for bad thoughts, not only for him, for sure not. He's a tzaddik. He's a kadosh, the Cohen, the high priest. But for Am Yisrael, now how does a garment that you wear going to atone for the sins of the Jewish people? And it's not even real. It's not even, and let's say like, I believe the Me'il, which has the bells on it, because he's got to walk in with bells hanging from him, because, you got to, give a ring ding ding, right? Before you come in a room, you got to knock on the door. Okay, derech eretz, manners, very nice. But it really atones for lashon hara and bad speech, because here it's making a noise against the no noise. Like, what is this? But really, that's the idea. These garments, the high priest is taking on all of the soul. He's an inclusive soul, that all of the souls of Am Yisrael are within him. And then he's wearing these garments and he atones for all of the sins of the Jewish people and thoughts and speech and actions, all these types of sins. The garment is affecting the insides. A lot of times, even in the simple way that we look at the world, when a person wears nice garments, he feels better. When he wears shabby, tattered clothes, he doesn't. So don't say garments don't have influence. They do. And so the idea here is to grasp the thoughts or ask who's talking, okay? But as will be explained later, we must believe in those thoughts with conviction. It's not enough just a little affirmation, right? So here comes the big chazal, and this is the whole dichotomy between the Yetzer Tov, the good inclination or good formation, if we would translate it literally, versus the evil formation. So here is King Solomon giving the nuance in a crux line. Better is a poor wise child than an old foolish king who no longer has the sense to heed warnings. Okay, what are you talking about, King Solomon? Okay, so here King Solomon refers to the evil inclination as the old foolish king, and the good inclination as the poor wise child. For those of you who have heard this before, it's a great review. You always got to go over it. The evil inclination enters a person at birth. It sets up its kingdom, it sets up its kingdom by establishing a network of perceptions, a network of perceptions, thoughts, and habits. Depending on the number of factors, It wires into the body a basic operating system. It uses the lower soul's inclinations to instill and maintain bad character traits. These are based on the 4 elements that we have in the world: earth, wind, fire, and water. This is actually brought down. I don't know why I didn't bring this in the footnote. This is Rabbi Chaim Vital, the student of Rabbi Yitzchak Luria, the Ari. He wrote in a book called Shari Kedusha, and in there he does bring the 4 elements. Every person is born at a certain time. It's the mazzels. It is constellation, and it is what the parents were thinking, and it is a lot of factors going on. But everybody will find within them they have a base, one of these 4 elements that is more dominant in terms of the person's, we're going to call it Pekala now. Do you know what Pekala is? Pekala is like when a child goes to, a kid goes to the synagogue and they have little goodie bags. It's a little popcorn, a little candy bar, a little wafer, a little M&Ms or whatever. And they give it to the kids, and the kids have a little Pekala. Excuse me again. Here we go. Okay, I have another phone call. Hello. Hi. Are they doing it at the same time? In other words, are they doing the treif and the dairy at the same time, like today, tomorrow? Are they producing the treif now? Okay, good. As long as they're not producing the treif now, are they planning to produce the treif tomorrow? Find that, ask them. Just text me if it is, okay? Okay, good. Okay, great. Yeah, find out if they're producing anything in the treif tomorrow. Did you taste the water? Good. Okay, good enough. So did they run? You saw the boiling water. It went through the pipes. It went through the system. Good. Okay, great. Okay. Yeah, if you could take pictures of those tanks at all that they were boiling, making kosher, just so I get an idea of how big they are and how it works. Also, take how many tanks and how many hoses. Like take like a brief inventory of what is being koshered here. Okay. Okay. Okay, great. Good. Yeah, that they're planning on doing tomorrow. It won't be a problem, but it's just better to know. All right. Thank you. All right, bye-bye. Okay, back again. Are you still here? You guys are probably getting annoyed, but that's all good because it's part of your growing process, okay? All right, here we go. We're here. All right. Hopefully that'll hold. All right. So here we go. Better is a poor wise child. Better is a poor wise child than an old foolish king. So here we have the king, which is the evil inclination. The evil inclination, of course, why is he an old? Because he came in at birth. The good inclination doesn't come in till later, at 12 or 13. So he's old. He's foolish because why? He doesn't see the future. He doesn't see the big gain if you wait for the pleasure. If you delay, right, the pleasure, he doesn't see the big gain in that. He wants now. A child's mind is very much like that. Okay. You could have the holy tzaddikim. I know I've taught this in classes, and the women go, don't you say that about my child. He's an angel. Okay. And he might be an angel, but inside, who knows what he's thinking? Okay. Yes, he's the devil. Okay. So in any case, a better is a poor wise child than an old foolish king. So he's old because he's been around, head start, 12 or 13 years. Foolish because he wants here now, and he's the king because he's in charge. He is totally enmeshed with your nefesh, creating this very loud sound, reverberation. It's in your nerves. You've tasted the pleasure. You've tasted this, whatever it is. You know, the habit is already, he's formed the habits. He's already been on a 13-year head start, setting up a dynamic system. You know, how to see things, how to look at things, how to respond to things. Okay. And you could have the most biggest tzaddikim and Baruch Hashem, you know, as parents raising you in the best schools. And there's always going to be something there. Okay. So otherwise you ain't going to be here, right? This is the world of tikkun, my friends. Olam HaTikkun it is called. This world is the place of fixing. Okay. So in any case here, let's just go on here. So the four elements we didn't get into much, but it's kind of here. Earth draws a person to the traits of sadness and depression, which is really the big Megefa these days. Megefa means the big plague. A lot of people, it's a really quite prevalent, the amount of depressed people in this generation. And it's just doesn't seem to be getting better. I'm talking about, it's just young people who are suicidal has gone off the charts and needs to be dealt with. But Rabbi Nachman did say that the disease of the later generation will be sadness. Has something to do with it, but we're on a good path. Yes, we are. Yes, we are. So earth draws a person to traits of sadness and depression, wind to instability and excessive speech, fire to anger, and water to chasing desires. So if you're a water sign, and you could probably know yourself in your past, in your history, yeah, I love that chocolate cake. Okay, and whatever else that goes with it. Okay. Or whatever it is, if you're angry. And we could have all four. That's not the issue. You know, usually one is dominant, more dominant than the other. The evil inclination pursues instant gratification in the physical world. It is referred to as old since it exists from the moment a person is born. It is referred to as king because it dominates and goes unchecked. Unchecked. And it is referred to as foolish because it doesn't see the whole picture. Self-gratification in the here and now are its basic goals and tendencies, and it usurps the lower soul's energy to fulfill those desires. The poor nefesh, really under the strong influence, almost hijacked. But of course, the good inclination now has to come and take over the kingdom. Here comes the poor wise child. The good inclination is referred to as the poor wise child. We are taught that it does not enter a person until the age of 12 for a girl or 13 for a boy, maturity. In the Kabbalah, we call it Mochin de Gadlut. And it just starts really at 9 and it builds up to 13 where it's like, should be in full force, even though sometimes it doesn't seem that way. I've met a lot of people who are very old and still. This lady, she's 75 years old, but she's a 6-year-old child in her mind. Okay. In any case, we are taught that it does not enter a person until the age of 12 or 13. For a boy, the good inclination is known in mysticism as the mature intellect, mochin de gadlut. In Hebrew, this is called dat or das. It's interesting. Usually, we'll classify das as the ability to discern between right and wrong. That here, when a person is 13, they're obligated to mitzvahs. And when you're obligated to mitzvahs, you can't be obligated before that because you have to have proper dot, proper discernment. Like I say, this word das has a lot of kind of angles to it. because also dot means like intimacy. Adam knew Eve, his wife. Know there becomes where that they had intimacy. So there's like, okay, put them together. I have put them together, and I go, yeah, and then of course it eludes me, and then I don't have it anymore. Okay, happens to me. Okay. So so it's dot, the ability to know and discern. To know, maybe you can, then to discern. This is a good thought. I'm going to, mamish, bring that, integrate that into my system, my belief system, and then live my life out of that. And I'm going to enrich and make bigger the conviction of this idea and resonate in a big way. I'm going to create some big, massive angel. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, meet Bubba. Okay, so the good inclination is referred to as poor because it really has no pleasure to offer now because it's talking next world. The good inclination is saying, hey, the only thing to do is to worship Hashem. The only thing to do is to serve God. The only thing to do is be connected to our Creator. That's the highest thing. Oh, yeah? Well, I'm not feeling it now, okay? So it's kind of like, yeah, well, give me something tangible, right? Right. So of course, not so tangible. It only offers the idea of working now and receiving the reward later, like in the next world. Do the mitzvahs now and get the reward later. It is referred to as wise because it perceives that if a person puts in the effort, he can acquire bliss in the world to come. And it is referred to as child because it only arrives on the scene from age 12 to 13, respectively. The Holy Zohar explicitly refers to the good inclination and the evil inclination as angels. Hence, if you have probably have heard of the time where a person comes home Shabbos and he's got a good inclination and bad inclination, we discussed this last week. And if everything is set good, so of course the positive angel is going, yeah, this is the motion. This is in motion. This is going to be the habit from now on. And the bad inclination has to answer amen to it, which is the whole thing now, because we're talking about higher soul versus lower soul. And we want to get those together. And really the idea of when we say in the Shema, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, you love Hashem, your God, b'chol levavecha. It says levavecha with two vets, levavecha, not libecha, your heart, singular, but with all of your hearts. What do you mean hearts? Which means your evil inclination. You have to serve God with your evil inclination. You have to be able to talk to him, tell him, explain it to him, right? Hopefully he won't kill you in the process because the king is like, okay, get him. Okay, because the little poor wise child wants to come and have a conversation with the king, right? So I have here, I'm looking in the footnote at 20, and I don't see it on the page or where it is. Oh, here it is. To know and discern, okay? So interesting. I'm not going to talk about the Gevuros and the Chasadim. Since the sin of Adam in the Garden of Eden, the powers of constricted consciousness enter the mind and psyche of a person first and exert their influence. Really, it's quite necessary, these gevurot, or these powers, because they really form the vessel, right? Which goes unchecked until the age of 13, when the chasadim, or like the kindnesses, that's a certain different flow, right? Mature, loving forces of intellect come in and begin the process of rectifying the original unchecked power. So everybody's got a pekala. Welcome. Here's your pekala. Welcome to the world. Here's your pekala, right? Pekala means, all of these thoughts and all of these inclinations and all of these reactions to things and the whole system of how your psyche works. Beyond. Okay. And so the idea here is the goal of the poor wise child is to come and convince the old foolish king, along with its captive lower soul, to join forces as one to perform the will of Creator. So here we go in understanding the will now, because don't forget, the whole crux of this book was on the phrase of, in the way which a person wants to go, they lead him. So the idea here is now to focus on the will. We spoke a little bit about like the soul, the will, and the thoughts as the garment. But let's get a little bit understanding the will. What do you want? Oh my gosh, I ask myself the question all the time, and I'm like, I don't know. Okay, sometimes I do know. Or do you know? And is it clear? Do you resonate with the knowing? Do you know what you want? Okay, so here's our journey. Welcome to your journey. The will is the point of meeting between the soul and the body. I was thinking there was Divrei Chaim, a story taught by Rabbi Moshe Weinberger. Divrei Chaim, big Hasidic Rebbe, he was being visited by a doctor. And the doctor was talking, as he's doing his check of the Rebbe, the Hasidic Rebbe, and he's telling you about it. I went here, I learned here, I got a PhD from here, and then he turns to the doctor and says, "What do you do?" And he says, "I've been working on building a bridge." And he goes, "Oh, you're into construction, right? A bridge between my heart and my mind." It's like his whole life he's working on getting the mind, the thoughts of the mind, and the will of the heart to be together. Even though, let's say, it's a lower soul. Okay. Interestingly enough, just to get here a little bit of interesting, because it just came to my mind right now, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is the word king in Hebrew is melech. So melech, or is mem, spelled mem, lamed, and chaf. Mem is moach, lamed is lave, and chaf is kaved, liva. Liva. Can you say liva? Liva, right? So melech, or the person who has his thoughts to connect to his emotions, the feeling tone, again, the resonance, to zzz with it. And then, of course, to rule over the kaved, not to get angry. But of course, if it's not like that, then what does it become? If it's like, if the lave is ahead of the mind, right, which some people, they think only with their hearts, with their emotions, and they don't really intellectualize things, right? These are the people who won't debate you because they just get all emotional. It becomes lemech, lamed mem chaf, right? And if it's, let's say, which means like nebuch, like lemech, it's like, Lemech was the guy in the Bible who had 2 wives. He killed Cain, and his life was not so good. He thought it was, but he was a Lemech. Okay. And then there was, of course, if you're kaved, if your liver rules over, supreme, kalem, over the lave and the head. So then it's kalem, chaf lamed mem, which means kalem, which means destroy. Kilem, right? Destroy them. Moshe, I like whatever. All right, let's go. Okay, so the will is the point of meeting between the soul and the body. Ultimately, it is the will that decides our direction in life. Whether we follow the thoughts and voice of the lower soul or the higher soul, neither soul has an independent will until it enters the body and becomes a novel creation, a bodified soul. Okay, but usually the soul in all of its elements, from nefesh, ruach, neshama, chayah, yechida, all of those 5 elements, 5 layers, are all holy. But only when they come in and they get influenced. The will of the higher soul is to make the body a dwelling place for the divine presence. And this is intrinsically what the body desires too. Okay? Just to like get a glimpse of it, just a sense of the higher soul. Okay, it only has really one will, and our whole focus in life is to connect to that will that's already there. Okay, and that will, it just wants to make a dira b'tachtonim. It just wants to become the chariot for the divine presence, like the wick of a candle just wants that flame to be there, right? Hashem is the flame, right? And we just be the wick, but we want the flame. What's good as a candle without a wick? without a flame, right? Very good. Okay. So the idea here is really, if you would get into, and the whole point is to learn Torah, study Torah, to pray, to get into that will that is already existing of our highest soul that only wants this connection to God and wants to do what it was created to do, which is to become this dwelling place, a Shekhinah. Okay, we want the Beit HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. That's the dwelling place. But in our whole neshamas are supposed to be like that. Ner nishmas, right? Ner Hashem nishmas Adam. The candle of God is the soul of man. So if you really hook into that, and that's just a huge thing to focus on and know that really is the highest thing. Okay. 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 So the will of the higher soul is to make the body a dwelling place for the divine presence. I mean, if you just underline that. And this is intrinsically what the body really desires too. The body also wants it. The evil inclination wants you to succeed. Don't forget. Don't think the evil inclination was hired by the king. It works for the king. It's not like what those other religions at war with the dark forces. There's no such thing. He controls everything. As a matter of fact, going back in terms of the mind, the thoughts, and the moach we talked about earlier, God controls the thoughts in our minds as well, all the time. It is really quite amazing if we be attuned to it. I think I told the story a few weeks ago about the woman who was praying. She was at this big, huge convention down in Eilat, and she needed 30,000 shekels to put a down payment for the hall for her daughter's wedding. And she's praying. She goes out, and this guy comes to her and says, God put it into my heart to give a donation of 30,000 shekels. What? Okay. Really? And I'm thinking about this week's Parsha with Yosef, when he's in front of Paro. Actually, it was last week's Parsha, Kate, where, he's able to say in front of Paro after being 12 years in jail, it's not me. I don't interpret dreams. You got the wrong guy. It's not me. But Hashem, he can answer Paro's. He can answer Shalom to Paro. Okay. All right. So the idea, though, that the body, yes, all of creation wants to serve God. The body, the evil inclination, wants you to succeed. The Zohar gives the parable of the king who hires a prostitute to son, wild as it is. Okay. So the idea here is he wants the prostitute to seduce the son, but the prostitute knows why she's there, and she's got to do her best to try to seduce him, but he wants him to succeed and overcome her temptations. There you go. So really everything's kind of built in if we would just understand it and be able to step out of ourselves for a minute. So the body also desires to become the chariot of the divine presence, the dwelling place. So there is, however, interference from the evil inclination. It's hired to do that. It's my job, which seeks to dominate the body and the lower soul. I'm just doing my job. That's my job. Okay. In the way in which a person wants to go refers to the will. Like I said before, the will is the factor that sets this process in motion, creating powerful angels. Indeed, the idea is to rectify the will, because from the will, proper thoughts can flow. So it is the will that exists in every creation that gives birth to needs. The will gives birth to needs, if you need it, that reflect that original will. Okay, another thing, and just another way of thoughts producing angels, but in terms of it's in the will form, that'll produce a need. I once asked the Amshin of a Rebbe. I was with the Amshin of a Rebbe years ago. And I asked him actually this question, which is this book is based on. Like, can a person, if they want to win the lottery, win the lottery? And he went, no. He went, no. But if you need to win the lottery, then you'll win it. Okay? It's a big difference between I want, between I need. So the idea here is if a will can turn into a need, then you have that energy. Like I know a friend who people come to him and they say, yeah, I want to quit smoking, right? Take them. I won't take them. He won't take them on as clients to help them. But if a person says, I must quit, right? So then he goes, okay, it's a different energy there. Okay. It is the will that exists in every creation that gives birth to needs that reflect that original will. Those needs in turn give birth to thoughts and to intellectual considerations that work towards the original fulfillment of that will, whatever the will is. For example, if a person's will to receive is limited only to animalistic lusts, then their needs, thoughts, and even intellectual faculties will be subjugated to the purpose of fulfilling their animal needs. Actually, this is Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman's explanation for heretics. Would you believe it or not? The people who are heretics, apikorsim, we'll say, maybe there's another word, whatever it is, deniers. The reason is like, and they'll come up with, and they'll write books intellectually, waving, explaining how there is no God or whatever it is. But really the idea here is that Rabbi Elchanan Wasserman explains the simple idea of, bribery in the Bible. The judge is not allowed to take bribes. Bribery will pervert the mind of the judge. Any kind of bribery, the subtlest kind, it messes up the mind. And he goes to say is the persons, the taivas, the desires and the lusts and the pleasures of this world are bribery to a person. And therefore a person is so involved in his lusts. So therefore it goes all the way up into his brain, and then it convinces him to put God out of the picture so he can run and fulfill his desires. So really the idea behind any person who wants to philosophize God out of the picture, God forbid, but they do, and they've done it. And the cut to the chase idea is because they're just after their lusts. So they have to rationalize God out of the picture. That's where the mind goes. Okay. So even their intellectual faculties will be subjugated to the purpose of fulfilling their animal needs. If another person's will is focused on honor or recognition, right, his intellectual faculties will be subjugated to that end. And see Rabbi Yehuda Leib Ashlag here, known as the Sulam, in his introduction to Zohar, right? Well, he gets into the two types of will, which is very important. I don't know why people don't really grasp this and utilize it, because it explains a lot of things. And it gets us into a really nice, clear self-knowledge. Because, there's two basic wills. There's going to be a ratzon lekabel, will to receive. And that really is the essence of all of creation. The only thing that Hashem created outside of himself, so to speak, is a will to receive. And that became the innate atoms and molecules of every single thing that we experience in the cosmos as well. The innate drive or innate substance, genetic substance, there is ratzon lekabel. We're stuck with it. We're stuck with it because why? God made a creation in order to bestow, to give. So therefore, he only knows giving. He only knows bestowal. He doesn't know receiving. Creation knows receiving, but creation is also supposed to know giving as well, right? So there's this spectrum of will to receive in the most grotesque sense on one extreme, and then there's ultimate altruism on the other. Moses, he doesn't care about himself. There's no ego. He just cares about the Jewish people 100%. Nadav and Avihu, those shkatzim, they hang around and they're his nemesis his whole life. He's the king, okay? And he tolerates them for all all this time until Korach, 40 years in the desert, right? He tolerates them all these years until they go down. And I don't know if he was happy when they went down. I was there going, yeah. Okay. But he wasn't. Okay. So you have this like spectrum of will to receive, and then it gets a little lighter. And then maybe, there's a little bit of a mixture and a blends of will to receive, will to give. And then eventually we're supposed to really turn ourselves into the beings who are ultimately completely altruistic and not in it for ourselves. And that is the ultimate connection to God. He gets a lot into that, and we've discussed that in the past. Okay. So let me just finish off here. Okay. The trick will be discussed later in chapter 5. Is the unifying and magnifying of the will that become the ultimate. You could skip there. I'll let you. Okay. An important principle to understand about the will is that while we might have many competing wills, all kinds of ratzon lekabel, ratzon lashpia, I want to donate my time, I want to donate this, I want to give, I want to, all kinds of things are operating at the same time, right, within ourselves. For example, the will to lose weight and the will to eat ice cream. Yes, that's my favorite. Among others, only one will can be dominant at a given time. And this was told to me, right? I heard this in a tape by Rabbi Kiva Tatz. When this was explained to me, I was told to picture a funnel-like structure through which many wills are poised to pass through in order to fall into the will chamber slot, funnel will chamber slot, right? One ball, bunch of balls, marbles going through the funnel, but only one dominant will at a time may enter the focus area, right? Driving for that will's expression. It's like we got to go a little higher than our thoughts now. It's almost like telling us, okay, let's get into the will of things. What do you want? Can you imagine yourself like one every hour asking yourself, what do you want? What do you want? Okay. In general, the will can only stem from one of two categories: body, the evil inclination, or soul, right? The will of the body could be likened to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, a lot of confusion, while the will of the soul could be likened to the tree of life. I view these two trees in the center of the Garden of Eden as representing a state of confusion or doubt versus a state of clarity and certainty. Interestingly enough, state of mind. Okay. What state are you in now? I'm in Alabama. The state of confusion can give rise to very strong and determined thoughts and wills of evil. Okay. Because it's confused. A person can become absolutely convinced that an evil act is essentially noble. Let's take the example of a person who must have his leg amputated because of gangrene. That's the example that Rabbi Kiva Tatz actually, he was in a hospital in South Africa, I think is where he comes from, right? And he's experienced this on a person, right? I don't think that was his patient, but he was in the ward where this guy was. The result of many years of chain smoking, right? Having urged him to quit smoking for years, his doctors believed that the necessity of amputation due to the irreparable damage would be a sufficient deterrent against further smoking. Yet, a year later, the same man was wheeled in to have his second leg amputated because he was still unable to quit smoking. The dominant will was screaming loud from the body to continue smoking and refuse to acknowledge any stop it. In other words, it was so dominant. The sound of the body, the voice of the body, the will to listen to the doctors and quit smoking was hanging in the wings, weak and puny. So ask yourself, what is your single will slot? Or, like I said before, what do you want? Let me just go a little bit further to that caption in the bottom. Spend a minute now and get some clarity. Usually the body tends to take charge, pushing you to finish that ice cream in the freezer or what is with him in the ice cream in the fridge? I know that's what you're saying. What's with his fetish and with the cake? Okay, I'm being safe. I'm being safe. I can go to a lot of other desires, but we're going to play it safe now. That's why I'm using like a safe area. So these are safe examples. I even wrote, it's like, what? I wrote this book. It's like, but I didn't remember it. These are safe examples in which one would not get harmed in the process of choosing between the wills. The body will tends to be very alacritous, pushy, and loud, and this is due to the effects of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which brings about the sweet, rancid taste of confusion. Because why? Chocolate ice cream, good. Okay? In reality, we have to proactively recapture our will slot. That's amazing because the will slot will automatically be just throwing down stuff. Chonk, 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 chonk. So now to focus our minds to saying there's a will slot there and I have to recapture it. We must be consciously aware of this and never give up. The goal is to keep reclaiming our will slot joyously. Thank you, Hashem, for giving me this great opportunity to reconnect my will slot. Okay, consciously, we need not worry. After time and training and learning to use the tools in this book and similar books, all of the books, the good stuff will naturally move in. And here is where we will thoughts and affect your will, and tap into your soul. Again, change your thoughts first. It starts with being aware of your thoughts and then being aware of who's talking, upper soul, lower soul. And then you affect your will and tap into your soul. Okay, we'll leave it at that right now. Okay. Let me end this.